Hi, Cubs, and we are going to get back to our reading of the Phantom Tollbooth. I feel like we're getting closer and closer to the end. If you look at it from the side, we've got, you know, some time left, but not a whole bunch of time. All right, so here we are. We're going to record the Phantom Tollbooth. And I want to say yesterday's question is an easier question, just kind of like an opinion or like a what do you like question. And I said, whose job would you like to have? And a lot of people said, and I said, oh, you could have anybody's job in the book, like talk, and I listed a whole bunch. But I had a lot of you guys tell me, Sarvanch, Diley, Houston, you guys all said Milo. And I was like, does Milo have a job in this book? I guess he's going to rescue Rhyme and Reason, but maybe they were just saying that, like you guys were saying, like, I wouldn't want a job, one of the other jobs. I'd want to be the person who gets to travel around. So that's true. So what are the jobs that you wish that you had, like, of the actual characters who have jobs in this book, like Talk? But Mason, Louisa, and Trinity, they all said they like Talk's job. They want to make sure they keep everybody on time and where they're going. And Talk also has another job, which is to help rescue Rhyme and Reason, right? So that's the job that Mason, Louisa, and Trinity wanted. And Shreya and Nishvita both said that they would like to have Rhyme and Reason's job. I'm assuming before they were put in the castle in the air, which is to make sure everything made sense and kind of be the judges when people had problems and solve people's problems. I think that's a nice thing. Ooh, I hope you guys can hear the people outside my door making all that noise. And Tanish said the Mathemagician, of course. Miss Cannelberry would say, before she got locked in prison, of course, the official witch. I would like to be in charge of which words to say and which words not to say, which words to use on every and any occasion. That's what Miss Cannelberry would like to be in charge of. In fact, I have a shirt that says the official witch. Official witch. WHICH, that is. So let's get going. At last we ended. Our trio had finally made it to Digitopolis. Well, the numbers mine. And we're going to look at that really quickly. So here's the Soundkeeper's Fortress. Here is that little dot over here is the entrance to the numbers mine, which is really close to Digitopolis. They met the Mathemagician. And now I think that we are going to, they're going to go have lunch with the Mathemagician, which is making the humbug excited. So let's get going. All right, 15. This way to infinity. Into the cavern rushed 8 of the strongest miners, carrying an immense cauldron which bubbled and sizzled, and great clouds of savory steam spiraling slowly to the ceiling. A sweet yet pungent aroma hung in the air and drifted easily from one anxious nose to another, stopping only long enough to make several mouths water and a few stomachs growl. Milo, Talk, and the humbug watched eagerly as the rest of the workers put down their tools and gathered around the big pot to help themselves. Perhaps you would care for something to eat," said the Mathemagician, offering each of them a heaping bowlful. "Yes, sir," said Milo, who was beside himself with hunger. "Thank you," replied Talk. The humbug made no reply, for he was already too busy eating, and in a moment the 3 of them had finished absolutely everything they'd been given. And here we go. "Please have another portion," said the Mathemagician, filling their bowls once more, and as quickly as they finished the first one, the second was empty too. "Don't stop now," he insisted, serving them again and again and again and again and again. "How very strange," thought Milo as he finished the 7th helping. Each one I eat makes me a little hungrier than the one before." "Do have some more," suggested the Mathemagician, and they continued to eat just as fast as he filled the plates. After Milo had eaten 9 portions, Talk 11, and the humbug, without stopping to look up, 23, the Mathemagician blew his whistle for a second time, and immediately the pot was removed and the miners returned to work. "Oh," gasped the bug, suddenly realizing that he was 23 times hungrier than when he started. I think I'm starving." "Me too," complained Milo, whose stomach felt as empty as he could ever remember. "And I ate so much." "Yes, delicious, wasn't it?" I'm sorry, no, that's the dodecahedron. "Yes, delicious, wasn't it?" agreed the pleased dodecahedron, wiping the gravy from several of his mouths. "It's the specialty of the kingdom. Subtraction stew." "I have more of an appetite than when I began," said Tock, leaning weakly against one of the larger rocks. "Certainly," replied the mathematician. "What did you expect? The more you eat, the hungrier you get. Everyone knows that." "They do?" said Milo doubtfully. "Then how do you ever get enough?" "Enough?" He said impatiently. "Here in Digitopolis we have our meals when we're full, and we eat until we're hungry. That way, when you don't have anything at all, you still have more than enough. It's a very economical system. You must have been quite stuffed to have eaten so much." "It's completely logical," explained the dodecahedron. "The more you want, the less you get. The less you get, the more you have. Simple arithmetic. That's all. Suppose you had something and added something to it. What would that make?" "More," said Milo quickly. "Quite correct," he nodded. "Now suppose you had something and added nothing to it. What would you have?" "The same," he answered again without much conviction. "The same," he answered again without much conviction. "Splendid," cried the dodecahedron. "And suppose you had something and added less than nothing to it. What would you have then?" "Famine!" roared the anguished humbug, who suddenly realized that that was exactly what he had eaten 23 bowls of. "It's not as bad as all of that," said the dodecahedron from his most sympathetic face. "In a few hours you'll be nice and full again, just in time for dinner." "Oh dear," said Milo sadly and softly. "I only eat when I'm hungry." "What a curious idea," said the mathematician, raising his staff over his head and scrubbing the rubber end back and forth. Oh, I'm sorry, this is Mathemagician. "What a curious idea," said the mathematician, raising his staff over his head and scrubbing the rubber end back and forth several times on the ceiling. "The next thing you'll have us believe is that you only sleep when you're tired." And by the time he'd finished the sentence, the cavern, the miners, and the dodecahedron had vanished, leaving just the four of them standing in the mathematician's workshop. "I often find," he casually explained to his day's visitors, "that the best way to get from one place to another is to erase everything and begin again. Please make yourself at home." "Do you always travel that way?" So what did he just do? Pause. It says, what a curious idea. The mathematician raised his staff over his head in scrubbing the rubber end. So scrubbing the rubber end back and forth several times over the ceiling. Right? And then he said, the next thing you'll have us believe is that you only sleep when you're tired. And by the time he'd finished, scrubbing the end of his staff, guess what? The cavern, the miners, and the dodecahedron had vanished, leaving the four of them standing in the mathematician's workshop. So what did he do? Yeah, he erased it. His staff is a pencil, right? If you think about it that way, his staff is a pencil, and he erased the mines so that they were back where he wanted them to be in his workshop. Anyway, so let's go back here. "Do you always travel that way?" asked Milo as he glanced curiously at the strange circular room, whose 16 tiny arched windows corresponded exactly to the 16 points of the compass. Around the entire circumference were numbers from 0 to 360, marking the degrees of the circle, and on the floor, walls, tables, chairs, cabinets, and ceiling were labels showing their heights, widths, depths, and distances to and from each other. To one side was a gigantic notepad set on an artist's easel, and from the hooks and strings hung a collection of scales, rulers, measures, weights, tapes, and all sorts of other devices for measuring any number of things in every way possible. "No, indeed," replied the mathematician, and this time he raised the sharpened end of his staff, drew a thin line in the air, and then walked gracefully across it from one side of the room to the other. "Most of the time I take the shortest distance between any 2 points, and of course, when I should be in several places at once," he remarked, writing 7 times 1 equals 7, carefully placing it on the notepad. I simply multiply. Suddenly, there were 7 mathematicians standing side by side, and each one looked exactly like the other. How did you do that? Gasped Milo. There's nothing to it. Oh, there's nothing to it. They all said in chorus. If you have a magic staff. And then the 6 of them canceled themselves out and simply disappeared. But that's only a big pencil, said the humbug objected, tapping with his cane. True enough, agreed the mathematician, but once you learn to use it, there is no end to what you can do. Can you make things disappear? Asked Milo excitedly. Why, certainly, he said, striding over to the easel. Just step a little closer and watch carefully. After demonstrating that there was nothing up his sleeves and in his hat or behind his back, he wrote quickly. See if you can do this. 4 plus 9 minus 2 times 16 plus 1 minus 3 times 6 minus 67 plus 8 times 2 minus 3 plus 26 minus 1 divided by 31 plus 3 divided by 7 plus 2 minus 5. He looked up expectantly. 17, shouted the bug, who always managed to be the first with the wrong answer. It all comes to 0, corrected Milo. Precisely, said the mathematician, making a very theatrical bow, and the entire line of numbers vanished before their eyes. Now, was there anything you'd like to see? Yes, please, said Milo. Can you show me the biggest number there is? I'd be delighted, he replied, opening one of the closet's door. We keep it right in here. It took 4 miners just to dig it out. Inside was the biggest 3 Milo had ever seen. It was fully twice as high as the mathematician. No, that's not what I mean, objected Milo. Can you show me the longest number there is? Surely. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong one. Surely, said the mathematician, opening another door. Here it is. It took 3 carts to carry it here. And inside the closet was the longest 8 imaginable. It was just about as wide as the 3 was high. No, that's not what I meant either, he said, looking helplessly at Talk. I think what you would like to see, said the dog, scratching himself just under 4:30, is the number of the greatest possible magnitude. Well, why didn't you say so? Said the mathematician, who was busy measuring the edge of a raindrop. What's the greatest number? I'm sorry. I'm going to go back and read in the right voice. This Canterbury is, well, why didn't you say so? Said the mathematician, who was busily measuring the edge of a raindrop. What's the greatest number you can think of? 9,999,999,999,999, recited Milo breathlessly. Very good, said the mathematician. Now add 1 to it. And now add 1 again, he repeated when Milo had added the previous one. Now add 1 again. 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 Now add... But when can I stop? Pleaded Milo. Never, said the mathematician with a little smile. For the number you want is always at least 1 more than the number you've got. And it's so large that if you started saying it yesterday, you wouldn't finish tomorrow. Where could you ever find a number so big? Scoffed the humbug. In the same place they have the smallest there is, he replied helpfully. And you know what that is. Certainly, said the bug, suddenly remembering to do something at the other end of the room. 1/1,000,000th? asked Milo, trying to think of the smallest fraction possible. Almost, said the mathematician. Now divide that in half. Now divide it in half again. 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 Now divide... Oh, dear, shouted Milo, holding his hands to his ears. Doesn't that ever stop either? How can it? Said the mathematician. When you always can take half of whatever you have, left until it's so small that if you started to say it right now, you'd finish even before you began. Where could you even keep anything so tiny? Milo asked, trying very hard to imagine such a thing. The Mathemagician stopped what he was doing and explained simply. Why, in a box that's so small you can't see it, that's kept in a drawer that's so small you can't see it, in a dresser that's so small you can't see it, in a house that's so small you can't see it, on a street that's so small you can't see it, in a city that's so small you can't see it, which is part of a country that's so small you can't see it, in a world that's so small you can't see it. And he sat down, fanned himself with a handkerchief, and continued. And then, of course, we keep the whole thing in another box that's so small you can't see it. And if you follow me, I'll show you where to find it. They walked from one of the small windows, and there, tied to the sill, was the end of a line that stretched along the ground and into the distance until completely out of sight. Just follow that line forever, said the Mathemagician, and when you reach the end, turn left. There you'll find the land of infinity, where the tallest, shortest, biggest, and smallest, and the most and least of everything are kept. Well, I really don't have that much time, said Milo anxiously. Isn't there a quicker way? Well, you might try this flight of stairs, he suggested, opening another door and pointing up. It goes there, too. Milo bounded across the room and started up the stairs 2 at a time. Wait for me, please, he shouted to Talking Humbug. I'll just be gone a few minutes. Now, what do you think? Do you think if Milo is just gone, if he's going to a place that takes him to infinity and going upstairs, do you think he's going to be done really quickly? Probably not, right? And so right there, we're going to stop for today. The question I want to ask you is this one. It has to do with the magical staff. Let's see. Here. So, Humbug said about his staff, it's only a big pencil, right? And then the Mathemagician said, true enough, but once you learn to use it, there is no end to what you can do. So once you learn to use a pencil, there's no end to what you could do. What do you think Norton Juster meant by that? All right? So leave your answer in the comments and have a great rest of your day.